All right. So, welcome. We're going to start calling this the Lender Lounge. And today I have a really special guest today. This is Kaylee Peterson from Rainier Title. And we're going to be talking through a couple of things where one, title and escrow, why you need it, what it is. And then we're going to be going into some different topics of strategies, the market. And yeah, I'm really excited about this podcast. So, Kaylee, thank you for joining me here. This is super cool. So, I'm gonna let her talk, and because I lean on her for my title and escrow questions, as you should too. So yeah, go ahead, Kaylee.
Well, thank you for having me. This is super cool. I've never done anything this formal, so super excited to be a part of this. I like the kind of the topics that we've picked out, and what we're going to talk about kind of goes from, how to run your business, but also kind of bleeds into like the mindset and how to propel yourself in your business. And so kind of talking about first, you said like what is title versus what is escrow. And so I'm a title sales rep, and I go and I meet with agents one-on-one, and I'm surprised to hear how many people don't realize that they're two different things. Everyone just thinks it's title and escrow. So learning, kind of what the difference is between the two, because they exist separately, and you could even use different companies if you chose to. Title is more, people hear that and they think like a car title, right? They think that it's going to be something, a piece of paper that you're going to get at the end. Like,
yeah, you keep it in the glove box or whatever. You keep it in the, your top drawer of your house when you get it. So
right.
That's not a thing.
No, it's actually more like an idea. You can't have the title to your house, but you can be in title of your home. So it's not like a tangible piece of paper that we give to you. There is a deed that would be more the tangible piece of paper. And then escrow is like the hub, right? They're the center of your transaction. You work with escrow on every transaction. Everything goes through them. Am I correct?
Yeah. So I feel like the escrow, they handle more like the money part, right?
Absolutely.
And then
the organization, the money, they're looking at the contract. And honestly, what I learned since working at Rainier, I've learned, they truly treat that contract like a Bible. If it's not in that contract, it's not happening. So the girls at Rainier, most of them 7+ years of experience, even for assistants. And if it's not in the contract, it's not happening. That is just how they go through every single transaction.
So help the people that are watching this, realtors and just home buyers, explain the differences a little more in detail, like the title aspect of things, why you would want title, why you need it, and what it's ensuring. Because it's more of like a past type situation, right?
Absolutely. So
and then escrow.
It is like an insurance policy, right? But when I get auto insurance, the idea is that if I go out and I crash my car next week, that they're going to, help me out in paying all those bills, getting a new car, XYZ. With title for your home, we're looking at the past of everything. So you're actually not getting insured past the day that you buy the home. You're insuring the past before you owned the home. We're looking into the past, sometimes back to, I don't know, as far back as we have record, 1800s sometimes, if that's how far we need to go back. But most people have only owned their home. I would say a lot of the stuff that's digitalized is like 87 and plus. Before that point, we actually have like microfiche that the girls have to search through the recorded documents for. But we're just looking to make sure that there's nothing going on your parcel that we're not aware of. So we can say, yep, we can certify that you own this and nothing's going to come up later. And what that would look like is you buy a house, and it was my grandma's house. She passed away, and they decided they were going to sell it off, but I could have had the right to inherit it. I can come back and, try to, wiggle my way in. Title insurance would come into play at that point.
Okay.
More commonly, because stuff like that doesn't happen very often because we do such a good job, more commonly it's like, small boundary line adjustments and stuff.
And so for a first-time home buyer, like if they're out shopping, is it important to pull a title report prior to looking at, like a Carfax, right? Like,
yeah.
Is that something they can go through that and go, okay, is this a good investment? I'm putting my money in this house. Does it make sense? And that's where you guys can come in and make that happen, right?
Yeah, and I would say, we're not going to let you get into something that isn't protected, right? So like if I'm a contractor and I'm flipping a house and I have all these mechanics liens on the property because I'm
yeah.
not paying the people who are working on it. As long as those are recorded, and we make them fill out an indemnity as well that'll say like, hey, I certify that, everything's been paid up or no work has been done. And if work has been done, that, I'm responsible for it. So you as a homeowner really can go in, assured that everything's taken care of. Title isn't going to close the transaction if it's not clear. So the way it usually works is the first thing that shows up in the title report is your property taxes, right? Mm-hmm. That is the first thing. If you're not paying your property taxes, they'll take your land and auction it. So that's the first. Then it's usually a mortgage shows up next, meaning if you're not paying your mortgage, that they can also, your mortgage company can take your house in a foreclosure and sell it. Anything after that, that's where you see judgments, liens, court, cases, mechanics liens, anything like that can come up. And title is going to say, basically we're issuing an insurance policy. We're willing to protect you against everything except in that section B, Schedule 2, when we're saying these are the exceptions. We're saying we're going to insure everything except these things. So if those things aren't taken care of before closing, your policy doesn't cover that. So a lot of times, you won't be able to move forward to closing because why would you want to take a property? Your lender's not going to want to take a property if there's a lien on it that has nothing to do with you.
Right. And I've been in the situation where, not quite a few times, but a few times where, someone comes and applies for a home and everything is great. It's a great transaction, great solid buyer. And then you guys will find, or title will find something that like, a judgment or something that's there that we don't get to see, that's not on the title report or on the credit report or anything like that. So there are other things that title can see that we can't. And sometimes it's frustrating for a borrower, when they go all this way and then they find out that something came up that they got to handle before they can even move forward. So, and then we got to help them, get over that hurdle and remove that. But it is good to know when you're working with title to have those things, like what is there? What sometimes you don't know. Maybe someone filed a civil judgment against you, and you don't know about it, and it would come up in that, right?
But I guess that's where having a good relationship with title and escrow is important, right? Like my agents know that they can open title and have that, before they even open the listing. I had a gal, we opened title a month ago. She's going live today. She's got the report already. She knows, what's going on her end. We do a name search for everyone. So, there always is that, that case where some things will come up. And if your name's John Smith, something might come up and, we'll do some more digging and find out it's not you. It's John Smith who lives across the street.
Yeah, there's 4,000 of those. You want to be sure you got to get through that, right?
We do have to check though, right? Because
Yeah.
we're saying, hey, we're willing to put our name out there that, this is done properly. So we are going to check. We're going to do our due diligence. But usually if you've got a DSHS lien or you have, a judgment, you went to court for it, about it. So a lot of times I would say that's not the surprise or the shocker is, usually about those things. But having a good relationship with your title and escrow people, making sure that they can support you and explain everything. So when I open a listing with someone, I'll text them, hey, I see that, this is on there. Do you understand this, or should we have a call and I can explain what this is and how we would take care of it? And our title department's great. They send out the report. Within 24 hours, they send out a review where someone in the title department physically put their eyes on the report and they're saying, hey, this is what would need to be taken care of before closing. So that way, your clients know moving forward, hey, this is what I've got to do before we're able to be finished here. And when I get escrow that comes through and I'm representing the buyer side agent, same deal. If I know there's, sticky stuff on title, I'll reach out to them and let them know. I always reach out in the beginning and just say, hey, welcome to Rainier. I'm your person. Call me if you have any questions. And, here's my phone number. Here's how you deposit earnest money, blah, blah, blah. Do you have any questions?
So for real estate agents, it's actually like helping them be confident in how they're going to move forward with their client.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Cool. I wouldn't give any advice on a contract. I know nothing about a contract, and most realtors don't know a whole lot about title and escrow. So why wouldn't you have a professional that you can lean on? Like I've always told you since we met, I don't know everything. I only have a few years experience in this, but I know people who know a lot more than me. And when you tell me what we need to figure out, Hey, let me three-way in Mike McCarthy. Hey, let me call Bill real quick. And we'll get those people on the phone who can give us an educated answer.
Yeah, I love that. You're a super connector in that aspect. One thing I really appreciate, when we're working together on things. Yeah, absolutely. So I've got questions all the time. You get them answered. And then touch on escrow real quick again, just kind of a little more in detail, like what's the significance of escrow and having a third party in the transaction between, a realtor and a buyer, and explain all that a little bit so that they understand what the importance is of escrow.
Yeah, I think often escrow is, people don't know. I heard a video a while back, and the gal referred to it as like the Bermuda Triangle of a transaction. And I thought that was like one of the funniest things that I've ever heard. I use that all the time now when I'm talking to realtors, because I'll say, hey, I meet with them one-on-one to build my relationship with them. And I'm like, what do you know about title and escrow? And half the time they just kind of giggle. And I'm like, all right, so we're starting at ground zero. I was the escrow assistant for a little over a year, so I'm pretty familiar with how the process works. And you should be too for your clients. As a lender or as an agent, it's not rocket science. There's a lot of pieces that go into it, and there's a lot of, hey, yeah, this is how this works, unless this one thing, and then it totally changes the circumstance, which is what makes escrow tricky. Again, having someone reliable that you can lean on when you have questions. But basically, it comes in, we open it up, and we're taking directions off that contract. So right away, it's going to tell us how much in earnest money, when it's due, how we're supposed to receive it, wire check. The escrow assistants, they'll reach out to your client. They'll figure out, hey, we're sending you out. We call it closing lock. There's a few different companies that different title companies have. But it's like an opening questionnaire that goes out, and it asks, marital status. It asks all the basic questions we need for processing. We want them to fill that out right away. And so I try to educate my agents, hey, when we send this out, make sure your clients are looking for something that says closing lock, because it doesn't say Rainier title. Make sure that it's getting filled out quickly, because it can delay. If we get to the end and we still don't have that information, we might not have processed the correct way. So that, I would say, when I was an escrow assistant, was one of the most irritating things, was like chasing people down, trying to get them to go into a little online portal and answer 5 questions. Usually what is like my saving grace is if they want to wire money, because the wire instructions are in that portal. So they've got to log in and do the questions to get the wire instructions.
There you go. So it's there for them to do.
But that helps us with processing. Escrow's job at that point, they look at the title report and what title's directives are on getting everything cleared. That means that the escrow assistant is calling your lender. They're calling the courthouse. They're calling, Washington State, whoever they need to get the judgment from, or the payoff statement. And everything has to come from who it's owed. Like, you can't bring me your last mortgage statement. It has to come from New American Funding. It has to come from U.S. Bank, BECU, etc.
Gotcha.
So
the note holder, the lender.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then it's pretty much checks and balances. And I think the whole concept, because escrow's used in other ways too, like we're looking at selling a boat in my family, and sometimes that's used. And so it's anything that's a big purchase, right? And so it makes sense for property, especially because there's so much involved in it. Mm-hmm. But say you were going to pay me $50,000 for something, and you give me money, we'd have to sit here and do this like, okay, you give me the money and I'll give you the key, and that's how we make sure no one's going to burn the other one, right?
Yeah, so it's the old, you throw me the idol, I'll throw you the whip, Indiana Jones situation, right? So there was obviously not a trust situation in that movie, in that part, but okay, I'm tracking with that.
So the whole point of escrow is, we hold all the money. We make sure everyone's on the same page. Everyone does what they, say they're going to do in this contract. And if not, they need to send us an addendum. And sometimes, like, little things, they're like, wait, you need an addendum for that? Well, yeah, because this is a contract. It's a legally binded document. If you're changing something in here, I need directions. All escrow is, they are the best direction followers you'll ever meet in your life.
I love it. Well, thank you for the breakdown and just the differences between that, because I do feel, and there's a lot of times where, when I'm working with clients and even realtors, and it's this elusive, there's not a whole lot of knowledge surrounding title and escrow. No. And I'm just now learning just some of the differences, and we had a class where I learned, the different ways to be vested on title, and there's multiple options. And it was an aha moment for me, because I'm like, okay, so when I'm sitting down doing a consultation with my buyers and I know everything. In the consultation, we go from A to Z, and so I'm looking into everything, your finances, all of it. And so by me doing a good job on that consultation and understanding the scenario, the goals, now I'm able to talk even better on how you want to vest it. And so, it was just something that I didn't really know that much about. But so it was a huge aha moment for me to know that there's, so many options of how someone can be vested, and that's super important. So,
well, yeah, and it's something that no one knows anything about. And so unless someone takes the time to learn, title, that's why we're always open to, anyone call. You call, your clients call. They can call the title department and they can talk to anyone there. And thankfully, I would say, I've never had a bad experience with our title department. They are always willing to explain everything in layman's terms. Sometimes they'll rattle off a vocabulary word. That's what I call them, like industry-specific words that don't make any sense if
they'll
not
throw the
in
buyers
the
out. Yeah, they're like, what
right.
does that even mean? Yeah, I have a problem doing that.
But usually, they kind of catch themselves. So know your audience, right? Yeah. So if I have a client on the phone with me, we'll call in together and we'll ask our question. And, they're like, oh, well, that's easy. It's just blah, 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 blah. And then they're like, oh, so what you would have to do, and they explain it, in the more layman's terms fashion. Something I was to bring up is like the closing process. That's so my goal always, whether I'm talking to a realtor, a lender, or the clients themselves, and as a title rep, I will call your clients. If you want them to have just like the extra assurance, like hand-holding, I'll call your clients and I'll talk with them. But I always want to make sure that they leave the conversation knowing more and feeling less stressed out. And so I think from knowing me, I don't know, a year and some, that I want to educate people my age, because my least favorite question is, what do you do for work? Because then I go, oh, I'm a title and escrow sales rep. And they go, what? And I'm like, have you ever bought a house before? No, I've never bought a house. And I'm like, all right. So like half the time I try to start explaining it and people just disengage. They're like, well, this is way more involved than I wanted it to be. But the closing process, when someone goes to buy a home, so often, because I do notary signings as well, we get to the signing table and they're like, cool, so when do I get my money? Or when do I get the keys? When can I move in? And it's not well enough educated by the agents or just like the public in general that signing day and closing day are not the same thing.
Yeah.
And there is a whole process that goes through. And I have like a little cartoon animation that I've made that shows how this works. But, we sign, goes back to escrow. Both parties have to sign. Documents have to be joined up. We send them to you guys. I don't know what you guys do in your magical land, but you tell us if something is, wrong or needs adjusted before we can get the money from you, basically. We'll give you what you need. You send us the money. Once we have the money and if additional funds are due, we have that money, then we're going to release that document to the county. The county is going to record it. When we get those recording numbers, now we're closed.
Yeah,
so there's quite a process.
It is, and it's trying to explain the closing process, during the consultation, and then during the transaction, those 30 days or 22 days, whatever the close of escrow, that period time frame is. When we get to closing, spending extra time with the client, with the buyer, to explain that closing process, because there's a lot going on in those last final moments. Like you said, there's a lot of communication between title and escrow, or escrow and title, the lender, because we got to balance those fees to a T. Yeah. So when I'm going, if you've never purchased a home, before you close, you get what's called a CD, a closing disclosure. And typically that is balanced to the penny with title and escrow. And that's a document that you and I will go over. So that closing disclosure, it's 4 pages, and it's everything that we've been talking about since day one. And now all the numbers are in line. Here's your payment, interest rate. It goes into detail, like what was paid out, for appraisal, title, and escrow fees. So everything in the transaction is on that closing disclosure. And then I will walk through that line by line with my buyers, and we're like, we good, right? We're still, yep, awesome, good. We're good to go. So then we give you the double thumbs up. Okay, we're ready to roll. And so then they come in, you guys schedule a signing, date to sign. They'll come in and sign their documents, and then typically it funds the next day or whatever the contract specifies. But Yeah, it's been a while since I've done like the same day sign and fund, like because of
Oh
all
my
the back and
gosh.
forth that has to go on. And so,
Do you
so
want to hear a story?
I would love to hear a story.
So last month I did simultaneous same day fund and closes. Both were funding on the same Friday to close the same day. So this guy is the seller on this house. So I sign him for a sale at the office on the Thursday in the afternoon. And he's like, well, can I sign for my purchase? Because I'm also buying. Well, no, because the docs were dated for Friday. So he had to work. And if we were going to fund and close same day Friday, he had to sign before 10 a.m. We had an appointment at the office at 9. So I ended up at this guy's house at 7 a.m. to sign his docs. I bring the docs back to the office, and then the buyer for his sale also needed signed in Federal Way. So I go to Federal Way, I sign her, I bring the docs back. And then, of course, lender comes back with, hey, we need this fixed. This needs to be signed differently, whatever.
Yeah,
so,
you got to balance. Something's not balanced. Yeah.
So I'm going back. Well, it was a page that was missing a signature.
Okay.
And it was, I don't know, one of the lender forms that I right over my head. So went back, got the signatures, got him back to escrow. Girls got everything scanned in, got the money, and I was sitting there at 12 o'clock thinking, I was doing this guy a favor because he was like, please help me get into my house. Like, closing day is Friday. I don't want to be in my house I'm selling any longer. Like, I do not want to be here anymore. I will do anything. Like, he's like, I will get on my knees and beg you if you'll help me. So I sign him, 6 a.m., go through all this running around, and now it's noon, and I'm sitting here texting the escrow teams like, did we get the money from the lender yet? What, is this still going to work? Because I'm thinking, did I just make this guy homeless all weekend?
Yeah, because you have to give time. So a lot of people don't know this. So I'm glad we're bringing this up because a lot of, home buyers, first-time home buyers especially, obviously you wouldn't know this because it's your first time getting into it. But the back and forth that goes on, because you sign those, that signing packet, it's all done. And then you kick it back to the lender, then we go through that just to make sure, every I's dotted, T's are crossed, signatures are there, the money balances, and then we go, yep, cool. So we reach out, yeah, we're good on this side, we balance, and then now we're able to release and record. And there are time frames, like you want to do that early in the morning because there's cutoff times by 11:30, noon, and then recording times with the county, 2:30, and sometimes you do miss that timeline. And then if it's on a Friday, well, guess what? We're not signing and funding until Monday. So it's super important for you as a buyer or even a seller just to work with your escrow team, work with your lender, and understand that closing. Because, close of escrow, it's not a suggestion. It's like that's the date we're closing on.
And if we want to relieve 80% of the stress that people go through closing on a Friday, don't make closing day Friday. I stopped pushing that. We could close on Friday. I was like, well, I get what you want to. But Monday or Tuesday is probably a way better day. Thankfully, so when I was escrow assistant, the company I worked at, we did a lot of same funding closes. There was a lot of me signing someone at 8 a.m, getting everything all ready, doing the funding package, getting off to you guys, and the stress and the tension. There were days I didn't take my lunch break till 3:30. Because I wanted to make sure that everything was good to go with the lender. I wasn't going to go on my lunch break and come back and have you guys have a condition, and now I can't get the money, and now I can't close the deal, and I've just let my clients down. So I'm taking my lunch break at 3:30 in the afternoon. I'm at my desk when everything is done. Yeah, the last thing you want is like, oh, I went and took lunch, and you missed an email or something, and now absolutely, guess what? Keys aren't hitting your hands today. That's it's a difficult conversation to have. Well, and I don't like to disappoint anyone. And the whole point of my job is, I'm supposed to be a reliable source for someone. So if I'm sitting there and I know that, I can be hungry an extra hour and make sure that things are done right, I'm going to do it. But at closing Friday, most of the time your escrow team, we have an idea of what we want to happen. But like you said, it's a lot of back and forth, and anything can mess that up. And so closing Friday is just a bad idea no matter what. I would say schedule your closing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Give yourself that extra time. Because what if someone's out of state and we're waiting for documents? You know how many times that it was supposed to be same day and I'm waiting for documents to come back FedEx, and FedEx goes, oh, oops, it's 9 o'clock and we have to let you know we lost your package. Yep. So it just, in my time so far, that's one of the most important things. I see a contract come in and the closing day is Friday, and I'm like, it sets your clients up for more stress. Right. And the other thing too is, so if you want to close on Friday, and I've had this happen where,
someone wants to close on a Friday, and again, there are things that can hang that up, and then you've got got to wait the weekend, fund it on Monday or Tuesday, whatever the situation is. But a lot of home buyers think, I think the thought process is, let me close on Friday, and then I'll set the moving trucks up, spend the weekend moving in, and all that stuff. Like, that is great. But in reality, if all those, ducks aren't in a row, then there's going to be a hang up. And guess what? Like if you scheduled, painters or somebody to come in the next day, I'm closing on this date, and you've scheduled someone to go in the next day, don't schedule any maintenance or moving trucks until you've talked with your lender, until you've said, okay, this is the close of escrow, and the conversation with your lender and you has been, yep, this is where we're at, 100%, here's where this can go. But at least have that dialogue, and don't leave your lender and realtor in the dark. Just scheduling moving trucks, it's a bad idea without talking to your lender, because there are things that can be hung up in, so.
Well, and it can be something that you would think wouldn't get in the way. Like, I've done notary signings. I don't know, a ton. And this was just a form that he signed at the bottom, but there was a section in the middle that I didn't notice needed initials. It was one of those big forms you guys have that's full of like a million words. And there was just a little line that, wanted a signature stuffed in the middle that I missed. And we're all human. And a lot of the times, the person who's coming to sign you, Rainier does a really great job of it being our employees, right? Whether it's me or it's Lisa in our Puyallup office, like, people most of the time are signing with a Rainier employee. There are events where, hey, we need someone to come out to our house. If I can't do it, we're hiring a notary for that. Who knows what experience they have? They might have gone on and, got their bond and they're just a notary. They know nothing about home documents. Of course, we have people, that we know and trust that we try first. But all this to say, it could be something as small as a flaw in the notary work that causes it to have to delay till Monday if we can't get that doc to you guys before your wire cutoff time, right?
Yeah.
The worst one that I ever had was a couple that were moving from Washington. I think they were moving to Florida, and I was the escrow assistant. And, she called me crying because we couldn't make her closing here in Washington happen on Friday, and they were in a U-Haul. They came and signed Friday morning in a U-Haul, which I already was talking to my escrow officer, and I was like, this is not a good idea. Like, nothing about this I feel uneasy for them. They came and they signed, and then they start taking off towards Florida. I'm talking to them. They're like, I think they were in Idaho when I talked to them. And I'm like, hey, we're having some issues with, I don't remember what was delaying it, but it was a Friday. And they're like, we're driving down to Florida this weekend, and we need to close on the house we're purchasing. Like, they were hoping to close this one and close that one on that Friday, drive their moving truck down, and have the funds. They needed the funds to do all of this. And I'm thinking, that is a lot to put on a Friday.
That's a plan with holes for sure.
Yeah.
So, well, good. Thank you for that. That was good information. Hopefully that was great for you guys to hear as buyers, just kind of, the difference between title and escrow, get some clarity on closing and some things to be mindful of, when you're closing and if you're moving, and there's a lot that goes into it. So all we're saying is just have conversations with your lender with title. And if your lender is telling you, hey, maybe closing on a Friday is not the best situation here, follow the lead of your lender. We're trying to protect you. We're not just trying to be jerks and be like, hey, like, we don't want to be dream killers, but we also want to protect you. So
you could always try like a or sooner too.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
On or before. So those are great. So we want to get into a couple of different topics here. We discussed some things yesterday, and then just about the market. And one of the things, as we know, it's a challenging market, unprecedented in some ways. We have realtors and buyers and people that are frustrated because there's a lot of uncertainty, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I love is like when we sit down and we do our little masterminds and talk, just coming up with solution. It's always solution driven. Okay, what are the problems and what are the concerns, and then how do we address those and bring those solutions? So that's one, I love doing that with you. So right now, like just with the market, everyone's asking what's working. And so what's working in this market right now is working. And so what does that work entail, right? So one thing you and I talked about, and I've heard this too, is like, it's more of a organic boots on the ground, like back to basics. We keep hearing that back to basics type thing. Well, what does that even mean, right? So, and we work with a lot of newer realtors, 3 years and newer. Yep. We have a lot of agents that got into the market in 2020, 21, and they were extremely successful throughout those years. And then, but there might be some educational pieces missing around purchase market and how to do the, like really how to lead generate and build relationships with people and build your pipeline. And so,
well, imagine you started your business 2 years ago and you didn't have to do any prospecting and things were just coming to you. Like I met with a gentleman once that told me that over half of his business comes from social media. He's just getting leads through Facebook. People he knows that are on his Facebook and know he's a realtor, they're just messaging him like, hey, I'm thinking of selling my house. And during COVID time, like that probably was more common. But imagine now you get to today's reality and it's very different. You can't wait for things to come to you.
No, you gotta take action steps and go in and make it happen. And so one of those things, like organic boots on the ground, what does that mean? Well, one of the things, farming, like that's a huge thing that's happening right now. And a lot of people that I'm talking to are new to the idea of farming, don't understand how that works. And so we're able to educate our clients on farming and then set up strategies on how to organically be proactive and lead generate through farming. I've got a system where, I've got some realtors, we have some farms going, and then we also incorporate HomeBot. So if you don't know about HomeBot, it's a good strategy to send out some postcards, start a farm, and then HomeBot allows you can put a QR code on that postcard. So when you do a farm, your sellers or whatever, they're going to scan that QR code to keep track of their equity, because everybody's conscious and mindful of equity right now, like what's happening with my 401k, what's happening in my equity positions. And so HomeBot is one way every month. It's like logging into your bank account and you can go in and check out, your equity position, play with different, as a seller, if I got this postcard in my mail and it says, keep track of your equity, and I don't have anything to do that, I'm going to scan that. And guess what? It's cool. Yeah, it's got my information on it, co-branded with a realtor, that we're farming in that area. But the cool thing that I love about HomeBot is you can navigate as a seller and a buyer and play with options without going to like a community board, and you're not going to get bombarded by people. The only people that are going to see your activity is me and the realtor that you're working with, or the realtor that's doing that farm. And so super powerful strategy there. But let's talk a little bit about farming, because you've got some great tools, and I want to hear a little bit about that and how it's helping realtors be successful and find the needle in the haystack right now, right?
Right. And I think I always encourage people to send out market updates. I think HomeBot takes that even a step further, right? It's like it's a market update for you. It's not a market update for, all of Edgewood, Washington. It's a market update for Jeremy Baxter, who lives in Edgewood.
Yeah.
And at this
specific address.
Right.
Yeah.
So it really gives people, because we've kind of talked about this before too, is like people are very weary to ask questions, right? Or to say anything, because one, the hounding, and two, the like fear of feeling stupid, right? Or of asking the unknown.
Right. Or they just don't know what they need to ask.
Yeah, that could be it too, yeah.
And that HomeBot report can bring up something we're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about Airbnb in my house. Or, if I pay $150 a month on top of my mortgage payment, what is that going to do? How early can I pay that off? There's so many options to rent it out, move up, because it keeps track. It has all the lender information that I put in there. But as somebody that doesn't have a loan with us or anything like that as a seller, it's just a good way for you to keep track of your specific equity position in your home. And also it allows you to go outside and look for other homes in other areas too, without being, like I said, bombarded. It's funny to me when I love, one of my favorite questions, and I've got, we got these community groups, on Facebook, and every time I see, hey, we're looking for a good lender, or who's the best real estate agent, and then there's like 400 comments in an hour, and you just get bombed. There's no way to get through that, and everybody's tagging everybody, and it's just this cornucopia of information, and it's gives me anxiety. I feel like I'm in a busy airport when I see that. And so this just gives, so it gives you personally a way to dig in on your own time without being just, distracted and having people, blow your email up, your cell phone, all that stuff.
It's a safe space for me to be curious on my computer and look into things, and then I can decide what I want to do. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like it's me and my computer at home. I don't have to get another person involved. I can just plug around, click on some stuff until I figure out if it's something I'm interested in or not. And if you call and follow up with me, by that point, I'm probably going to know, like, hey, I want to know more, or I'm curious, or, I don't know, I clicked on it and I'm not here for it.
Yep.
What I like about it is, because one day I hope to be a property investor, is that it does kind of read into that for you too, where it'll be like, hey, here's how much equity you got. Here's what you could, moves you could make happen with that. So. Yeah,
no, it's really great. So boots on the ground, like let's dig into the details of the work that it takes right now, organic ways of building your pipeline and talking to people and finding that deal. So let's talk about farming a little bit, and maybe some door knockings, just some other areas that, realtors and that we can get into and help you get some more leads in business.
Yeah, and I think when you're looking at prospecting, right, like I could throw a big fish net over, the whole city of Tacoma, and I could spend a bunch of money marketing to that area, or, I could really boil it down to a certain area I'm interested in, and then boil it down even farther to certain people in that area I'm interested in. And it totally depends on like your niche, right? If you want to work with buyers, you're going to be marketing to different people than if you want to work with sellers. If you want to work with buyers, you need to reach out to your title company and buy an apartment list, probably. Then you're marketing to people in apartments who, it's all of our dreams to own homes. So we don't want to live paying rent anymore, because I've been paying rent for 8 years and I have no equity for it. So I would much rather move into, a buying situation. Mm-hmm. So, but if you want to market to sellers, you're probably looking for either someone who's been in that neighborhood the average time for that neighborhood, which I can tell you as well, or you're wanting to find, your empty nesters, your move downers, people who their kids are off to college and they've got this big empty house and a ton of equity. And shoot, right now with 7% mortgage rates, I would sell my house, cash out the big pillow of equity, and go buy a smaller house cash and just have no payment.
Have some reserves. So yeah.
So
I mean, downsizing, and then you find out, what, maybe I don't want to clean a 4-bedroom house all the time. So I totally, as an empty nester, anymore. I get that. So.
Right. So knowing who you're trying to market to is important. So often, because a good majority of my week is meeting with realtors one-on-one. And when I'm talking with them and I'm like, well, what's your target area? A lot of times they're like, oh, buy my house in Tacoma. Okay, Tacoma's big. Like, show me what area you're thinking. Well, then we pull it up and we start looking at the turnover rates. And I'm like, there's not really a lot happening in your neighborhood. So maybe we should look, 3 subdivisions over where there's stuff happening. And those are the conversations that I have with them. We've got programs for that. And we kind of pick, once we picked an area, okay, who in this neighborhood are you wanting to sell to? Are you wanting, people who want to move here? Are you wanting people that want to move out of here? What's the goal here? And we have several different programs. Like one thing that's been pretty popular now, because it's no secret that people aren't moving for fun anymore. At least
circumstantial now is kind of what we're seeing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So we've got a system that pulls leads. Like I can type in an address and tell you within, a radius, how many, divorces, how many liens on the homes, how many probates or deaths, right? And so people will market to those particularly. And, so often I hear like, oh, I don't want to work with people who are going through a divorce. I would do that because it's more difficult, it's more work, and it can get messy. If you have a great title and escrow team and you have, they have representation through an attorney,
right?
It can be done. And that is right now, like you said, circumstantial. That's probably the most popular circumstance because I know people now who are finally getting divorced that applied during COVID. So we have a system that does that. One thing that's really exciting is the system we got in January that I've shared with you. You can pull a farm, and there's actually a tab in there called Hot Movers. The gentleman who created the program, he's like a super programmer. He competes in all kinds of competitions and such. And it'll actually identify, based on this big AI analytic, who they believe is going to move next. And it has like a crazy success rate. I want to say he said it was like 73% down in California.
Wow.
He tested it in his own market. Don't quote me, but yeah, I mean, it's going to identify. So like I have a farm, I pulled up Puyallup, and it's 3,000 people. I switched it to Hot Movers yesterday, and it showed me 70 people.
Okay, so hold on real quick. So realtors, did you just hear that? So if you are struggling with ideas and ways to lead gen and build your pipeline and just get out and be more proactive. So she just went over a tool that's going to help you identify hot movers, AI technology, and then it allows you to be proactive. So if realtors, so they can reach out to you.
Absolutely.
You will show them how to set that farm up, but then they got to work the farm though. And let's talk about that because
I will say in my time since moving into the sales department, that has been my hardest pill to swallow, is that I'll sit with someone, I'll invest this time learning what they want to do, and then I follow up with them and I'm like, hey, how's your farm doing? And I would say a good half of them, if not more, are like, oh, I just haven't gotten to it. I need to. So then I'll follow up, a few weeks later or a month later, and it's like, oh, I really should do that. So kind of what I've started to do now is make sure that I have a plan in place where I'm saying during that meeting, okay, great, I'm going to make you an account for this farming tool. While we're in this meeting, I'm going to teach you how to use it in your account. We're going to create a farm. You're going to pay the $2 or whatever a farm costs. We're going to get it all set up. Now you own this farm during our meeting. Next thing we're going to talk about is what you're going to do with that farm. When am I following up with you for that? And that's become the conversation, is like, I will be your accountability partner, because when you do business, I do business.
Right. And it's building the relationship. And you've heard me say this 100 times where, like my business is helping realtors grow their business, and the loans are a byproduct of that. Right. And so part of that is me helping you identify your business. Hey, have you connected with Kaylee, or who's your title rep, or have you learned about farms? And so literally, so I love hearing that you are that committed to the realtor relationship and your client relationship that you're going to help them build a farm and then give them ways, kind of just step by step, and lead them to more leads and more transactions in your business, which is going to make you more successful in your business. So, and I too, I'm seeing that where realtors are, and a lot of it is, I think, just frustration in the market. And so
there's so many options. It gets convoluted and confusing, and you want to make sure you're making the best choice. Is it better for me to send a postcard or go door knocking or buy phone numbers and emails and call, or do I send a drip campaign? Like there's so much. And then I want to do a postcard. Great. There's 50,000 companies that send postcards. Right. Who do I pick? What's best? What's the cheapest? What's most effective?
Yeah, it's like dealing with a first-time home buyer. Like there's so many different programs and variables involved. Yeah. So first, just have the meeting, come sit down and have the consultation. For you want to give me an idea of your business. Like, what do you want to do? How do you want to function? What does it look like to you? And then let's build the steps to get there. And then you're coming alongside to help them move through that. One of the things that in the conversations that I'm having with my clients and the realtors, and even for me too, like during all this uncertainty and the things that we're getting just bombarded and we're getting hit with all these narratives, uncertainties. And so losing touch with your why. So, we did a class on, finding your why, and I used you as an example. We got to your why really quick. That was a great day.
I didn't plan on crying.
It was all good, but that was real and organic, right? When that came out, I was like, there it is. That's why I kept prying and prying and prying. And then neat class. It ended up just being one of my favorite classes that we had, because everybody was talking about their why, and there was a lot of emotion involved. And I feel like it just brought the group that we work with a lot closer.
Absolutely.
Super
and I think
cool.
what else was cool, because some of those people I had never met before. And I didn't. I mean, I think I knew my why, but I didn't know my why until we sat down and talked about it. And I really, I had this broad, oh, my why is because, I want to do this. And then we start digging in, and it's like, but why does that matter? But why does that matter? Until we got all the way to, why is it important to you that you do this? Why do you care so much? And these people that I had never met that now are part of my sphere, because they're like, she's genuine, and I see that, and now I know how she operates. And so I think sometimes we're so protective and we don't want to be vulnerable to other people. But that group that we were with that day, I could call any of them, and we're friends at this point, because they know who I am as a person.
Right.
They understand how I operate and what's propelling me, right?
Yeah. Yep. And so in that, and we have conversations about finding the why, and one thing that I've learned is when you don't get in touch with your why, right? So you want to understand, discover your why, get around someone that can help you discover that. Because when we lose sight of that, we're just spinning out, and I get caught up in it too. And so what I've found is there's extrinsic motivation, intrinsic motivation. And so if you lose sight of your why, now there's your motivation or your progress forward is caused by, circumstances, right? And so that can leave heel marks. So when your motivation is because the circumstances suck, or this is happening behind me and I have to move, again, heel marks. And there's friction. It's not an easy path. And when you understand your why, or when you set goals 3 to 5 years out, now it's like you've gone 3 to 5 years ahead, and now you're looking at yourself and you're doing this. You're like, dude, well, I'm here. Now it's an easier motion. It's a forward motion. There's no heel marks. You know where you're going. You know why you're going. And then you know the steps to get there. And then it's just a matter of taking the action to do it.
Anything like what you do, what I do, what a realtor does, where you are your own boss in a sense. I have a boss, but I do my own thing, right? And I can be as motivated as I want, right? Mm-hmm. He's going to check in on me, but it's my job to make sure I wake up every day motivated. Right. And everything has to be reframing. I could wake up and be like, oh, I didn't open a deal yesterday, so might as well give up. And what I found just last month, I realized people that I met with in November and December are opening title deals now. So the work I do today is going to change how successful I am in July or August. So I have to wake up every day and have that mindset of, hey, maybe yesterday wasn't one for the books, right? But I still have to get up and do the darn thing, because it's going to make a difference later. And it's being a young person building my career. That's all it is, right? Is I have to wake up every day and put in the work. And the more work I put in, the better foundation I build for myself now. I don't need to be the most well-known or popular person. I need good relationships with a set amount of realtors. I know what my goal is. And once I have those realtors that are, doing a stable amount of business that I have a great relationship with, and I can just farm my own people and maintenance them, if I go out to an event, I get an extra person, whatever. At that point, that's what I'm working towards, is having, people that I can rely on that rely on me, right?
Building your tribe.
Right.
Finding your tribe.
And it doesn't need to be all of Washington.
Right. Yeah. No, and I originate in other states too, and have a group of people. And
well, imagine if you were trying to win everyone in Washington and Arizona over.
I would spin out.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. So, no, I think that's really great covering that. And what are some other ways right now that realtors, that you can help realtors, find deals and even communicate better conversations with their clients and their prospects and all that stuff? What are some other tools that you could offer? You partner with a realtor. Yeah. What are some ways that you can help them?
I think I come at this position from a really different perspective, maybe because I worked behind the desk for a little while, but also because my whole life have been a pretty creative person. I come at this with new ideas that no one else is doing, and I think as a realtor, that's what you have to come to the table with as well, is what are you going to do that no one else is doing? And if you're not willing to do something, someone else will be. So like we were talking about door knocking earlier today.
Yes, let's talk about door knocking real quick.
Door knocking is, I always encourage people to do it. And maybe you're not comfortable knocking on the door. I have a realtor, her leads, she moved here from Idaho, where it's probably a lot more acceptable to door knock, right? Everyone's neighbors, like, I don't know, maybe they don't like it even more there in Idaho. I'm not sure. But she does it. But she doesn't even knock the door. She puts together a little, like, gift bag that she buys on Amazon, puts all her stuff in there, decorates it all up, and she just leaves it on the doorstep. If someone's outside or they're carrying their groceries in, like, she'll go spark a conversation with them. But so it's really natural and genuine. But she leaves, you know, valuable information in a bag. She's leaving, you know, information on that neighborhood. She's leaving resources for, you know, if they need any sort of construction work done, if they've got title questions, like she puts all of her information in this little packet she drops off.
So it's almost like a realtor can come to you, put a farm together, start sending out postcards. So identify a community that you want to work and you want to be the I don't know, the real estate
local
mayor
expert.
and the local expert in that market. And so then you start sending out postcards and then door knocking, and you're really kind of getting familiar with the community and meeting the homeowners on a face-to-face business, level. And so door knocking, I'm no stranger to door knocking. I lived in Arizona and I worked for a cable company down there, and I was part of the door-to-door team. I loved it, and people were like, you're absolutely crazy. And so I'd knock on the door and be like, hey, I know you weren't, my name's Jeremy. I know you weren't expecting me, so I'll be quick, just real quick and kind of lively and just talk to them. But a lot of things that I hear now, people are like, well, yeah, nowadays with the way the world is, like, I'm not knocking on a door. People are going to, there's fear there, and I get it. But at the same time, if you've already put out a couple of rounds of postcards or newsletters that's educating the sellers in that community, your face is going to be familiar. So then when you go to knock that door, I would say like 2 or 3 drops, and then you're hitting those doors in the community, just getting out and talking to people. And now you're starting to have conversations and questions and building trust. That's a great way to organically kind of control an area, be your local expert, and start working with people. But the door knocking is, I think it's key. I did an open house with a realtor about 6 years ago, and hot home, price to sell. And so the realtor and I sat down. I said, well, let's do this. Let's go and invite everybody to that open house. We're doing it on Saturday. And we went and knocked 65 doors surrounding the area. And what we came up with was this plan that said, choose your neighbor. And so we knocked on the door, we gave them the flyer, invited them to the open house. And in that conversation, we were also saying, hey, you know what? We have this house coming available. It's priced to sell. Do you know anybody that you would love to live next to? Any of your friends that are trying to move to this community? This was Lake Havasu. And then people were like, yeah, you know what? I got so-and-so. They would love to. Yeah, cool. And we had I think we had over 30 people that came to the open house, and also the leads and just the conversations we were having by knocking those surrounding doors. Not intrusive at all. You're actually telling them this house is going on the market. If you know anybody that you would love to live next to, or that would love to live next to you, or just, start building that community of your friends, let them know this house is available. Here's the information on it. Here's my information. Here's the realtor's information. Come by and grab a snack, come take a look at it. Film a video, send it to your friends. Like, that was super helpful, and it worked out great.
One thing I've heard several times too is that sometimes you get like looky-loos, right? Who are just curious. They're like, is this house nicer than mine? That type of thing. So I have seen agents where they put aside a couple hours before. What I think would be killer is like Saturday night, right? Like, hey, you and your friend, bring your friend. We'll look at the house together. I'll be here from 5 to 7 Saturday night. And then Sunday morning, I'm going to have my normal open house. But this is Saturday night is exclusive for you and your guests. And just have a time where they can come in. If I'm just curious if that house is nicer than mine or whatever, everyone from the neighborhood can come walk down the street together, like kind of build that community where, this is a special event for you guys. Something special that we're doing for this neighborhood. It's not open to the public.
Yeah, no, it's really. I love open houses. I
Yeah.
absolutely love open houses.
I think too, like we talked about, there is the safety piece. Like the world's a scary place. I'm not going to say that. My parents used to send me around the neighborhood, and I would, sling cookie dough or whatever the school wanted us to sling. To
World's best chocolate bar, candy bars.
Going and knocking on all the doors and talking to all the people. I mean, I was fine. My parents were usually with me. I mean, I think now if you want to go door knocking, like we talked about earlier, maybe don't knock on, the scary looking haunted house. Maybe don't knock on the house with the giant German Shepherd. Don't knock on, you can skip houses if you have reason, or I've heard people take their whole family, or I've heard people take their kids in a wagon or their dog with them, like whatever makes you feel more comfortable or more safe, right?
Yeah. Well, and again, going back to that farming, if you've got 2 drops and you're familiar, your face is familiar now, and your information is out there, it's a warm conversation at that point for most of the people that have seen that, and if it's a postcard and something that's different size than a regular mail, it's going to stick out. So people are going to see that. And it's a letter, like if it's a hand, written letter, envelope addressed to them, that homeowner's going to open that. And so you're planting seeds, and you're making it easier to door knock and then go out and talk to people because they've already seen your face. They know you're a realtor. They have information on you. I think it's a great market for that. And it's time to start looking and thinking about, those types of activities to bring education to the communities that you want to serve and the people that you want to put into homes, and help just put together financial plans, right?
Yeah, and I mean, no one's teaching us this stuff. I recently, within the last, decade, graduated from high school. They didn't teach me this stuff, okay?
No,
I'm learning this stuff on the job.
They didn't teach us this.
No. I'm learning this stuff on the job, so I didn't have any idea. They taught me once how, like, a car loan amortization works, and that was, like, the extent of, like, how interest works.
Yeah, so in 8th grade, they taught us how to write a check, and I was like, okay, great.
You've been to, you probably not, J.A. Biztown? Your kids go to that?
No, I've heard of it, though, where you're, like, the mayor and all that stuff. Like,
yeah, you go in, they give you a job, you get a paycheck, you run around and pay your bills. I was the State Farm lady. But that's, like, for one day.
Yeah.
That was supposed to teach me my lifelong lessons of, like, how to move out and be a grown-up and pay my bills.
Well, and that's what I love, and I feel like I love, like, when you and I connected, first it was the educational piece. Like, we want to educate people. I'm learning constantly, and I educate myself so that I can educate my children. I have 3 boys that are in their young 20s. One is a homeowner. The other 2 are on their way for that. And so, that's my why. I was like, I thought after, my kids turned 18, like, I had no idea that there was going to be a father 2.0 and these other side of things. And so,
you become more a mentor.
You do. And I enjoy that. I love teaching, and I love learning and seeking truth. And so, no, that was where we connected, was the educational piece. And then now, like, to be able to have open conversations about strategies. And you and I ultimately always want to help realtors grow their business and take new realtors even, and that's one thing that I love. It's like, I wish someone had caught me at an early age. When I started in real estate, I was licensed from 04 to 08 with Keller Williams, and I didn't know anything about finances. It was a good time back then. You just think the money's going to come, it's never going to stop. And then 08 happens, and then you're just like, wow, where did all the money go? Yeah, and you're like, wait, I got to move back into mom and dad's house and restructure and all this stuff. And then, so, yeah, I get it. I don't know where I was going with that, but that was free.
Well, I think kind of one of the topics we mentioned talking about too was like the back to basics talk. I keep hearing back to basics come up, right?
Yep.
And so that is back to basics, right? Like learning the basics of how to take care of yourself. And your job as a realtor, as a lender, as a title person is to educate people, right? I don't call the bricklayer guy and ask him to come build me a chimney and not have him explain how the job's going to go.
Right.
He's going to explain to me. He's not going to teach me how to do the job, but he's going to explain to me what I need to know to have a good concept of why I'm paying him and what he's going to do. it is our job as professionals to educate the next level. Imagine going to, an investment banker or, someone who's going to help you invest your money and giving them money every month and not knowing where it's going or what it's doing. That's, in my mind, that's a big red flag, right? I want to know and maybe that's just the way I learn. I want to know what's going on, why we're doing it, and what the benefit is, because then I'm going to learn from that. So that's everything that we do. Anytime I'm working with anyone, but why? And just explain to me why, because that's how I learn. That's my way of learning.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are like that. Like, if I understand why something's happening, I'm not going to push back on it so much. I'm going to have a better understanding and not have so much angst about it.
Right.
And I'm going to feel more comfortable, period.
So, and you just hit the nail on the head so that's why it's so important to have a consultation. Whether I'm working with a realtor, I'm looking at analyzing a realtor's business and coming up with ways to help them be successful, or I'm sitting with a first-time home buyer and going through a consultation. So the job of that consultation or that meeting is to get a good understanding of what's happening in your life as a homeowner. What are your goals? Where do you want to go? And then it's also to answer your questions and minimize the anxiety as you're going through the process. There are buyers and people that you work with that will, you can have that consultation. They go rogue, or they're out there, and we get that, and you got to rein them in and kind of, and then there's, we call those, like, in those situations, the market's going to have to teach them that. And that's okay, because you have people, I get building trust, and maybe you're sitting down with a lender and he was referred to you from a friend of a friend, and they do a good job on the consultation, and you're still kind of like, well, maybe I want to do this, maybe I want to do that. And, but that consultation is supposed to minimize the anxiety. So follow the lead of the lender, follow the lead of your escrow agent, your realtor. We are all talking together. Our goal,
especially now, I feel like the last 6 months we've banded together a lot more.
Yeah, like even doing the mastermind classes, and we're seeing success with those realtors that were coming into that, talking about just the psychology, keeping this sharp, the mentality, how to keep yourself positive through these tough markets, activities to be doing. Give yourself time to relax, rejuvenate. Like on the weekends, if you're working on the weekends, be all in, work on the weekends. If you're not, turn your phone off, put it on, I said pilot mode almost, or airplane mode, but plan it out. And if you're going to take a break, be in it, go where your phone doesn't work, and just relax this, So I think it's super important right now as we move forward, and the market is still, like I said, there's a lot of uncertainty in the market right now, a lot of variables that are happening, and people are asking questions like, well, what does it mean to buy a house right now? And interest rates are, well above what we've heard over the last 3 years, 2% and 3%.
Yeah.
And so the goal is to sit down and figure out a strategy, how to navigate through this to purchase a home, still, look at all the numbers, put you on the right side of the numbers to build wealth. And yeah, I think it's super important. And it is very important to work with people that have a good team, with the realtors and the title reps. And I think this market has drawn a lot of the entities involved in the real estate transaction a lot closer. I've seen that even with renovation, construction people, and title and escrow and inspectors. Like, we're all in this together, and we understand that. And the ones that have longevity right now, we're all talking about this. Like, how do we go? What do we got to do? Back to basics. We got to go back to almost like we're starting over again.
Well,
and I don't think it's a bad thing.
Well, you mentioned the building your tribe thing, right? And so this is just who I am as a person. I love to connect people. And so I've been networking like crazy, and I've met, roofers, countertop guys, flooring guys, whatever. I've got them all in an Excel spreadsheet. I've got a binder. It's so dorky with all their business cards and plastic protectors. I've
seen it. It's like a Pokemon folder, Pokemon cards or whatever. I don't know.
That way, when you need someone. My clients need someone. So like just 2 weeks ago, I had a 35-hour come back and needed a new roof. And the agent's like, oh my gosh, the first place we called, like the quote was way too high and we can't do it and it's going to kill the deal and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, calm down. Here's 3 more roofers that I know. Give them a call and let them know that, what's going on, that what you need. And they were able to get a roof for her for cheaper, better product, and it only delayed closing like 2 days. So just the fact of connecting with other people, because that's all I try to do is connect with other people like us who want to band together and want to work together and want to build these relationships. Yep. If you're, a roofing guy who owns your own business, it would be stupid not to want to band together with realtors because, no one thinks, I think I want to replace my roof today. Because it's expensive. It's time and it's a lot of time involved. It's a lot of money.
No, it
one
happens
wants to
when
do
you're already there.
It happens when you're trying to sell your house and the inspector says
right.
Today's the day.
Yeah. Yep.
So
that's typical.
I don't know. That's been the fun part, and I think kind of banding back to like we said, what is working? Working's working. And every group I go to is like, oh, yep, back to basics, and it's. I want to know more about what people think that means, because to me, back to basics means we're going to work like they worked back in the day, right? We're door knocking. We're farming consistently. We're looking for different ways to get into community events, right? Like we're putting ourselves into the community, and that's how we're going to get name recognition. People are going to know who we are. There's no shortcut to becoming the person involved in your community.
Right. And so realtors, if you're listening to this, I would love to hear, and we would love to hear, comment, let us know what you're doing, what back to basics means for you. What are you doing in this market to help you get transactions, get people into homes, get contracts under contract, and staying in escrow? So we have some solutions too, but I want to hear from you. So put it in the comments. I want to read through them and just give other realtors ideas, because we all know that there are realtors that are struggling right now. Like, what do we do? I got in this to help people, and over the last 3 years, unprecedented things were going on in the housing industry. There wasn't a whole lot of time to learn. And so anything you can do in these comments to help another person, they might have an aha moment. Whatever you say, they might, oh my gosh, that's what I need to do. So I want to hear from you.
And add in like an extra step on this when you comment. How are you holding yourself accountable to it? Right? So like I get ideas all the time, know, and I'll call you like, oh my God, I got this great idea, da 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 da. And then I realize how much work is involved in my idea and how much it takes to get it from the idea I had in the shower to executing, and how I'm going to consistently stay on top of executing. But we kind of talked about the quote earlier that says, like, oh, that person's so lucky, right? Like there's, big high producing realtors. Oh, they're so lucky. So lucky. Their life must be so easy. They've got it made, like blah, 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 all that stuff. They didn't get there on accident. They didn't fall into that.
They're following the steps.
It's determination, right? Like the more you work, the more you put into it, the luckier you get, right?
And I think they're super connected with their goals and their why. And that's something I struggle with, is consistency. Like back in October, I started getting up at 5, reading, going to the gym. And then just last month, it's like, well, I can skip this day, or I can skip that day. And then now I know I feel it. And I'm like, okay, I got to get back on track with this, because I love the way I felt. I love the way that I was waking up with anticipation.
Oh yeah. No, this is a conversation Tanner and I have all the time, where I'm like, who decided I could be an adult? Like, who decided this is okay? Because now no one's watching what I eat. No one's watching how active I am. No one's watching how often I clean my room.
You're left alone without supervision.
I went from like my mom being like, eat 3 square meals a day and, work out 1 hour a day and make sure you go to bed before midnight, to like, I eat what I want when I want. I stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, I have no rules. Who decided this was okay? Kind of like on our way up here, we were talking about, like, kids go and they run around and they're all crazy, right? And that's how they get their physical activity. And they're playing tag, they're doing their thing. And then one day, I don't know, 2nd, 3rd grade, we're like, you're a big kid now.
Yeah,
so you've got to rein that in And then it becomes, by like middle school, if you want to work out or get physical activity, you're doing a sport or you're going to the gym and you're walking on the treadmill like all the other adults.
Right.
And so now it's, if I ran up to you and tagged you, people would look at me like I was psycho. And it's just the way, I guess that's what I'm trying to get at is, we have these structures in our head that someone or the mass group have believed. And so now we don't step outside of that. I don't like to knock on the door because it makes me uncomfortable and I'm afraid of rejection.
Right. It's comfort zone and it's the familiarity of.
Yeah. I don't play tag because someone's going to judge me for it.
Right.
Right?
Yep. So come out of the comfort zone, do the action steps. Keep this right, because if this goes, everything else goes, right? And so,
absolutely,
yeah. And I've got a couple of friends that are realtors right now. We're talking about like, what are we doing for like mental accountability, reading, writing, just having conversation, and it's been super helpful. But yeah, man, I think this was great.
Yeah, I think this year when I was making my goals, I came across something that said, I want to say it was like 30 minutes of your day is like 2% of your day is what it was, something along those lines. And so that really has changed the way I think about something. Like, okay, there's this 30-minute workout on Peloton where I can go do yoga, and it's going to better myself. It's going to like bring me some zen so I calm down, get rid of some anxiety. That's 2% of my day. Right? So when I go to do something, like go shopping, and if I'm going to do that for 2 or 3 hours, I'm like, oh man, that's like, 8% of my day.
Right.
So I start to figure out.
It's just minute.
Yeah. I can do anything for 2% of my day.
Right?
That's not going to ruin my day. It's only 2%.
No, I love it. Well, Kaylee, thank you for coming on here. It was great chatting with you. And guys, if you have questions about title and escrow, or about farming or some strategies to help you grow your business, reach out to Kaylee. Or
Jeremy.
Or me. Yeah, we have some great things that we've put into place for some realtors that we're working with, and they're seeing success. There's accountability there. And it's a great group. I love our little group.
Yeah.
But yeah, just have some dialogue. Like, if you're feeling lost or I don't know what to do right now in this market, if you don't even understand the market, you can meet with us both. So, yeah, reach out. You're not alone, and you will get through this. And yeah, just speak up. That's all. So we have some great things to help you improve your business, and going forward in the market, because we do want to see you successful. So again, thank you for watching. And again, thanks, Kaylee, for being on here. And talk to Baxter if you have questions about lending, finances. Talk to Kaylee if you have questions about title and escrow, farming and building a business and all that stuff. So I think that's a wrap. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And realtors, please comment down here what you're doing, what back to basics means for you, and what you're doing to keep your head on straight. And yeah, discipline, consistency. We want to know what you're doing so that other people will see that and hopefully take that and run with it. So, all right, that's a wrap. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys.